Welcome. Today I am going to be doing a continuation of the true stories that will raise the hair on your neck. If you did not see the first part and are interested, I will leave the link down below in the description. So, with that, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Our daughter. We moved into a new to us house 6 months ago. There are 2 large bedrooms upstairs and 2 small bedrooms on the main floor. My husband and I take one of the upstairs bedrooms, and our 2-year-old daughter is in the other. Since moving in, she's been a bad sleeper, up several times during the night, sometimes crying, sometimes talking. We put an extra bed in her room and take turns sleeping with her, so at least one of us gets a decent night of sleep. The ceiling slope in the bedroom, and the only window is at the end of the room. So we have a twin bed on each side of the window, with a 6-foot space between the beds. Our daughter is very active, walks, talks, crawls, and climbs. One night, it's my turn to sleep with her. She gets into bed with me, lying alongside me. I don't know what time it is, but it's dark outside, though we get a bit of light from the neighbor's garage through the blinds that don't quite close. Usually, when she talks or gets up, I ignore her. I don't want her to wake up even more. I even keep my eyes closed lest we make eye contact and it's game on as she's up for the day. But this night she gets in bed a little to get her to move, but not fall off me. She keeps climbing and putting her arms around my neck. She's cold, but it's a chilly night, and if she's climbing on me, then she's just not been covered by a blanket. She's very persistent, and this feels like it's going on forever. I'm getting frustrated that she's not just going back to sleep. She's on my back, scooching down and laying on my legs, then back up to my back with her arms around my neck. I finally crack and say, "Will you please just go to sleep?" At which point my daughter from the other bed across the room asks, "What's that, Mommy?" The weight on my back instantly lifts, and I look over to see my daughter sitting up in bed, literally on the other side of the room, looking at me. I take her and book it into the main bedroom. The next day, we move her bed to a downstairs bedroom and take turns sleeping on the floor next to her bed. Nothing felt ominous, just somewhat playful, though I'm not eager to experience it again. The Black Dog. So, this story is pretty simple, but it always stuck with me. I grew up in the thick of southern Appalachia. I never gave much credence to the old folk tales I heard, and there were plenty. I met my boyfriend when I was 16. Drugs had saturated our area. To party, we would ride down the mountain in his black Honda Civic, out the several miles of gravel road to the army camp at the river to party. This particular night, road ahead, a black dog. Not a wolf, but easily just as big. A Great Dane, if I've ever seen one. And I had not in real life. There are no residences, nothing around that would make you think that this expensive dog would be on this road. But there it stood in our headlights, and my boyfriend rolled to a stop as we looked at it. It was kind of postured. I don't know. It was illuminated by our headlights, hackles up in a way I'd never really seen. It just stood there. He beeped his horn and started creeping closer in the car. This dog did not care, was seemingly unconcerned. The closer we got, the more unreasonably unnerved I felt. It was just staring at us, like I could feel its gaze through the windshield until it was practically against the bumper, and it was not going to move. We were at a standoff. So my boyfriend went around. He painstakingly cut his wheels, went off the gravel road to go around this unmoving hulk of a black dog. If it was in the middle of the road, we veered to the left of it so that it was on my side as we moved past. I remember how it stared at me. It was so tall that it was eye level with me in the passenger seat. I remember begging him to hurry past because there was this awful feeling that it was aware of my discomfort. I'll never forget staring into its shock yellow eyes right at eye level as we veered around. It stared at me, unmoving, unbothered. Then we just rolled around it. saw it again, though. But I'll never forget it. I never knew something that seemed so common. It was just a dog could make me feel such deep dread, such palpable unease. Even now, thinking of those eyes makes my throat tighten. I feel like I saw the devil that night. Beach Town. We moved to a small beach town about 4 years ago. Became friends with our neighbors and enjoyed the more relaxed and slowed down lifestyle that a small beach town offers. Nothing spooky here. The only thing off about it was the drug problem in the neighborhood. We'd occasionally see people passed out behind the wheel of their cars. One time, we found a note in our bushes imploring us to give back my children. I have several young ones, and that she, he, they, the writer of the note, was coming back to get them. Weird and worth a call to the local sheriff's department, but that was it. About a year ago, or maybe longer, since I think it was mid-pandemic, my incredibly capable and stout-hearted neighbor, I'll call her Mary, knocked on my door and asked me out to the middle of the street to talk. She then apologized to me and asked if we were all right. Surprised, I said, "Yeah, we're okay." "Why?" Mary is a no-nonsense, second-generation German American, about 65, works all day in her garden, taught for 40 years, and is fazed by nothing. She says sorry because she didn't get to talk to us last night or check on us during all the commotion, and that it wasn't very neighborly of her, but it was just so late and her nerves were frazzled. I told her that nothing happened last night and that there was nothing to apologize for. That's when I see another neighbor, Ron, from a block over, walking up to us. Unbelieving, she says, "What? I could have sworn I saw you outside last night during the commotion." Ron, not his real name, is now right next to us and says, "Dude, how could you not have heard it?" street that face the coast. Hers is dominated by a large picture window that overlooks the hill down towards the water. Thinking it was just sonic booms or artillery testing, we live next to a military base. Rattling the window, she didn't think much of it. After a while, Mary said that she thought the booms were getting louder and that they might break the window. So she got up. When she walked back from the bedroom she shares with her husband, who was still asleep, into her front room and turned on the light, the booming on the window stopped. She noticed after turning on the light that her front picture window now seemed to be covered in mud. After looking around for a few seconds, seeing nothing, she turned off the lights and headed back to bed. As soon as the house was dark, the booming started again, this time coming from the front door. Inset slightly from the window, the front door has a tall, thin window next to it that allows you to see who's in the inset. In the dark, Mary said she peeked through the window and saw movement. Immediately awake, she went back to the bedroom to get her husband. Now Mike, not his real name, is an old school beach bum and firefighter, has seen it all, and has no time for nonsense. So Mike gets up, forgoes getting the guns that Mary says he has. After all, this is a nice beach town, and walks with Mary behind him to the front door. Carrying just a tennis racket, Mike turns on all the inside lights, as well as the porch and outside lights. As soon as all the lights are on, Mary screams. All the stuff on the front window that she thought was mud gets lit up. But it's not mud, it's blood. Hundreds of bloody handprints of someone banging on the front window. Mary said there was so much blood on this person that she couldn't tell what he or she looked like. And what they at first thought was long, dark hair was actually blood pouring in rivulets from their scalp. Here's the kicker. Mary, now on the phone with the sheriff, starts relaying to them what's going on. And this is what the sheriff says back. Ma'am, we're aware of the situation and are handling it. How exactly are you handling this? She says. The 911 operator tells her that the sheriff and deputies are on the street in front of her house and are monitoring the situation. This is when Ron jumps in. Apparently, this truly disturbed person had been going to every house on his block and our block, pounding on the windows and doors while screaming the same thing. Basically, that someone stole their children and was trying to eat their face while the cops followed them from a distance. They had hit at least 10 houses with this same thing. For some reason, the sheriffs decide to take the person into custody right before they reach our house. I have several young kids, as well as a large old picture window that surely would have broken after a few good slaps. That morning, Mary shows Ron and I her front door and window. So much blood. There was never any follow-up from the sheriffs as to who the bloody person was or what eventually happened to them. The only thing we ever heard was that it was someone known to them and that drugs were involved. The photo. Every summer, my wife's family spends 2 weeks at a lakeside cabin that they share with other members of the extended family. The cabin was built by my wife's grandfather and sits at the end of a dead-end road. Beyond the street's end is a dense wooded area. I've only ventured back there one time, where we found an old abandoned cabin. The family cabin has just 2 bedrooms. The kitchen and a living room, dining room make an L shape that wrap around the bedrooms imagine, the 2 bedrooms get crowded quickly when adult children and their families are all staying there at the same time. I have sleep issues, including insomnia and sleep apnea. I stopped using the CPAP because having my mouth and nose covered gave me panic attacks. Probably the only sleep issue I've never had is sleepwalking. One night at the cabin, I was tossing and turning and decided to go sleep on the couch in the living room, dining room, so my restlessness and snoring wouldn't bother the other 3 people in the bedroom. It was already after dark, so I left the wall of windows uncovered. I scrolled through my phone until I felt tired enough to fall asleep. The next day, we were all enjoying the lake, and I took several photos with my phone. Later, I was going through my photos and noticed one I didn't recognize. I opened it and found a photo that appeared to have been taken in the dark with a flash. There was a mayfly illuminated by the flash. Then I saw it. Behind the mayfly was a glimpse of my car's driver's side mirror and part of the driver's door window. It had been taken at 1:42 a.m. the night before. My car was parked directly outside the wall of windows where I had been sleeping. The window. This happened to me the summer I turned 11 and is one of the scariest, weirdest things I've ever experienced. I'd think it was a nightmare, except at the end there was another witness. That summer, my parents sold our very regular 1-story house and bought a much larger, incredibly unique house in the next town over. The architect who built it used all kinds of old, reclaimed materials, and almost all of the windows were antique stained glass that came from England. The outside had wide, rough cedar planks instead of regular siding, and my brother and I learned early not to run our hands over them, or we'd get splinters. It was the coolest house I've ever lived in. My room was also huge. It had its own bathroom and a walk-in closet. There were 2 large stained glass windows facing out towards the street, but at an angle, This kept the scorching hot sun from shining directly in any of the rooms. When we moved in, my mom put my bed against the inner wall, facing the windows. Again, coolest, most beautiful, most original house I've ever lived in. Our parents didn't tell us about the house until the deed was done. Then they took us over there to see it, and we were so excited. It just seemed so huge and exotic and grand. We moved in, and my brother and I spent the summer exploring the neighborhood, which was a lot older than the one we moved from, with a bunch of cool older houses in it, and trying to meet some kids, which we did. And when we did, we found out why our parents got a great price. The guy who built the house, who was a well-known local architect who'd built quite a few unusual, unique homes in the area, was also a convicted sex offender. He built the house we bought not long after he got out of prison for his wicked deeds. All the kids in the neighborhood knew about it from their parents, and when they found out which house we lived in, oh boy, you live in the haunted house. The guy who built your house is a pervert and went to jail for it, etc., etc. We got big eyes at the pervert revelation, but snorted at the haunted house one, since no one lived in the house before us. What exactly was haunting it? I mean, it looked like it could be haunted, but it was also technically brand new, reclaimed materials or not. I also happened to read the Amityville Horror that summer, long before it was debunked as fake. I've always loved scary stories, ghost stories, stuff that scares people, and never felt especially scared or freaked out myself. But for some reason, that stupid fake book scared me, resulting in my developing some serious sleep issues that summer. It didn't help that we were in a huge, strange house that I wasn't used to yet, and also because the house had so much wood inside and outside of it that every room had a smoke alarm with a red light that was really noticeable at night. The one in my room was on the wall right next to the closet, and after reading that dumb book, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see the red light and immediately think of Jody. was after 2 a.m. The whole house is silent, and I was really not jazzed that the rest of my family was on the other side of the house, which isn't that far in the daytime, but seems like miles in the dead of night. Then I saw something in the window out of the corner of my eye, and holy God, there was what looked like a human head peering in the window at me. 2 stories up, a head looking in. Okay, this next part is difficult to write because it was so weird and I really don't like remembering it. The windows of my room were very large, a 2-part design where the larger lower half was a rectangle topped by a smaller sideways rectangle intersected by a thick wooden frame. My mom put in shutters on the lower half and sheer curtains on the top half. Some parts of the window were clear, like regular glass, some thick wavy glass, and some colored glass. When you looked through them, you'd get a distorted view of the outside, some clear and some not. So the head, or whatever it was, wasn't easy to see, except as a shape. It kept rising up above the shutters like it was trying to see into the room, then would sink back down. I have no idea how long it was doing that before I noticed it. My first thought was that someone was standing on a ladder, trying to see inside. But if that was the case, then either the ladder was propped against the window glass below, or the person was very tall. But then the head shape did something so horrible, so strange, I almost screamed out loud. It had been peeping up from below the shutters like a regular person would, but then it disappeared, and when it reappeared, it was looking in from the side, like whatever it was changed position and was suspended sideways in the recess, which was impossible. All thoughts of weird dude on ladder flew right out of my head, and bad thoughts about demons and monsters flew in. I lay there in absolute terror, watching as the figure would appear and disappear, sometimes from the left, sometimes from the right, then most horribly upside down, as if whatever it was on the roof hanging over and looking in. scratching sounds as it moved around, sounding just like when squirrels scrambled around on the cedar planks. I couldn't see any facial features, and it didn't look like it had hair, but it definitely had an oval-shaped head. I don't know how long I lay there, scared to death, and watching this thing look in my room. But then, having no idea what was happening, my brother walked in to use my bathroom. One of the less convenient features of this house was that his bathroom was actually located off the laundry room on the first floor, and he didn't like walking through a huge dark house in the middle of the night, so he used mine instead, which was fine with me, and especially welcome at that moment, because it broke the strange spell. I screamed at the top of my lungs. The thing disappeared with a loud scratching noise like it had claws that slipped off the cedar planks, and my brother said, "What was that?" I started crying. "What was that?" My brother kept asking, and he was almost as shaken up as I was. He told me later that the minute he walked into the room, he knew something messed up was going on, as the hair on his arms stood straight up. I spent the rest of the night sleeping in his room on his spare twin bed. The next day, we went outside and looked all around, but there was no sign of anything. No marks in the ground if there was a ladder. No marks on the side of the house. No evidence at all that something had been crawling around my window, trying to see in. We never told our parents. They weren't the kind of people who believed in the supernatural and would have dismissed it as a nightmare. And it was the kind of soul-scarring experience that would be made so much worse for being dismissed out of hand as imagination when I knew it really happened. Nothing like it ever happened again. We lived in that house for years, and everything was fine. But I wasn't taking any chances either. The next day, I rearranged my entire bedroom so that my bed was now between the windows, and I moved my dresser and mirror to a position where the mirror didn't face the windows either, so I wouldn't wake up and see something looking in, reflected in the mirror. I also put a piece of tape over the red light in the smoke alarm, much to my stepfather's annoyance. I told him it kept me up at night, which wasn't. 'Wasn't' 'a lie. 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 ' Tacoma.